Thank you very much, Derval. I'm delighted to join you here this evening, and thank you, Avila, for the summary of the day's proceedings. And thanks also to the rapporteurs who came and gave the summary of the different discussions. I've been at many events where new ideas have been floated, but it's the first time that I've seen it actually done physically, and very impressive for all of that. I want to thank the 15 Years On group and indeed everybody present for partnering with the Department of Foreign Affairs for this year's Reconciliation Forum. 12 months ago, the 15 Years On group recognised the need to take stock of where we are in terms of peace and reconciliation a decade and a half after the groundbreaking transformational moment of the Good Friday Agreement. In the years since the agreement and since the restoration of devolution in 2007, there has, I think, been a certain reluctance from commentators, and I think from most people who've been involved in the process, to be critical of any elements of the peace process, as though being critical of it was being critical of peace itself. And I think it's very clear from what we've heard from today's discussion that there is a need and indeed a hunger for honest discussion. And I think that needs to continue. It was, I think, natural and understandable and reasonable that the lack of, if you like, critical approach to the whole process was necessary in order to ensure that the process was grounded down, that stability was supported, that the institutions got up and running. But I think that an unintended consequence of that discipline, I think, that people imposed on ourselves has been that public and I think political discourse has been somewhat weakened. Bland and formulaic words extolling the peace process as though it was a historical fact, signed, sealed and delivered, can ring hollow when we witness the ongoing damage which division is having on society in Northern Ireland and on North-South relations. A monochromatic presentation of peace and reconciliation in Northern Ireland also meant, I think, that some living in the South, as well as those in Britain, in the United States and in Europe and further afield, believed that the job was done, that Northern Ireland had overcome its legacy of the past and no longer needed political and moral support. But there are, I think, new voices, and we've heard some of those here today, who are challenging us all to identify and to remove outstanding obstacles to a shared and to a reconciled society. And the Irish government wants to welcome this. The past 12 months have borne witness to a more vocal discontent across civil society and politics about the negative effect of sectarian division on the public and private sectors in Northern Ireland. The vocalisation of this discontent is, I believe, a good and a necessary thing. Firstly, it bears witness to a growing confidence across business, community, faith and other sectors to demand real and consistent investment by all in a more reconciled and prosperous future. And secondly, it adds impetus and focus to political debate in relation to those matters both within Northern Ireland, in North-South relations, in British-Irish relations, and indeed the international arena. And this is a good thing too. This has been a fraught year for community and for political relations. It has provoked questions about attitudes to the fundamental principles on which the peace process was founded: equality, ending division, human rights, parity of esteem, support for the rule of law and for the devolved institutions, and of course the issue of the continued responsibility of the two governments, something that we've heard about here again today and has been mentioned in the reports for it. Today's forum has been about working collectively to identify and to articulate for broader attention issues of immediate and pervasive concern. Today was about listening to some of those who supported a new vision for Ireland back in 1998, and also listening to those new voices who 15 years on can see what still needs to happen to ensure that the peace and reconciliation process continues along the right trajectory. Whilst I think we can all become locked in our own silos and our own areas of interest, be that at working at interfaces and sporting organisations or in government, ultimately we are seeing the same issues percolating through as the issues of primary concern. And so I've been listening to the feedback from your sessions today, and what is clear to me is that in the first instance, we need to reaffirm our commitment to the fundamental principles of peace, equality, human rights, parity of esteem, support for the rule of law and for the devolved institutions. These must be shown to be as compelling and as meaningful to the new generation who are growing up post-conflict as they were to the generation who voted for the agreement. We also need to address the issues that have been neglected and which continue to be felt as absences in Northern Ireland and which have percolated to the top in your discussions today. And I have heard what you've said very clearly in terms of the Bill of Rights, the Civic Forum, the many other areas of engagement that you have focused on. You've identified a range of these important issues today, and indeed a number of them were raised with me in meetings that I had in Belfast and Derry over the past number of months, and I'm certainly going to reflect very carefully on these. But if I can just pick out maybe a few, and I do so conscious that, I'm not, this isn't, if you like, picking the most important ones. It's the ones that just occur to me that maybe I should say a word or two in response to. The first, I think, is the need for social investment to go hand in hand with economic investment and job creation. Jobs are very important, but a reconciled society is not brought about by jobs alone. And those of you who are on the forefront of the work knows the scale of that challenge which is ahead. The second is, I think, the concern that there is over diminishing resources for reconciliation and how they should be deployed. I was very pleased that during the course of Ireland's presidency of the European Union in the early part of this year, that we managed during the negotiation of the European Union budget, the multi-annual financial framework for 2014 to 2020, to include in that a 150 million provision for a Peace 4 programme. But there is, of course, the issue of how those resources are to be deployed and where they will have the best effect. The third issue, and one which is one that, again, I've come across in meetings both in Belfast and in Derry, is the critical role of women in public life. And by that I don't mean just formal politics. I mean the public life in its widest sense. I had quite a remarkable meeting in Derry last Saturday week with the Foyle Women's Information Network. And I have to say that I learned more in a half an hour talking to those women than I would learn in a full day talking to political counterparts. What they were able to tell me about the impact on their communities, on the people they know, on their friends' children and their own children, of distribution of drugs and all of the various kind of social concerns and family concerns that they have. And they certainly set me thinking about where it is we need and how it is we need to deploy our resources into the future. The fourth, and I think an important theme, is I think the need for renewal. And I was struck by this. The Secretary of State and I did an event in the MAC in Belfast for the 15 years on. And it was an event where, and I think some of you may have been involved in it, where a group of kids who were born the year of the Good Friday Agreement, now 15 years of age, and they were brought into the room and they talked with us for a while about how they saw Northern Ireland and what they saw their future being. And